On a previous episode of 5 Games, we took a look at 5 great games for the often overlooked Sega 32x. On today's episode, we are going to take a look at the next layer of the 32x library and check out 5 good games for the system. Metalhead is a mech-style action game released for the 32x in early 1995. In most ways, the game is interesting more for its technical aspects, rather than the gameplay. First, Metalhead actually uses polygons to render the 3D world, rather than a raycasting engine like Doom. As a result, there are multiple camera angles to select, and you have the ability to look over your shoulders. The downside to using textured polygons, however, is the frame rate suffers, and isn't nearly as smooth as other early 3D offerings. Still, this is a fairly ambitious Sega 32x game. On top of polygons, there is a ton of voice acting in the game. From the intro to mission briefings and even the weapons shop, there are talking heads chattering away. For a cartridge-based game, this is rather impressive. The game itself is straightforward. Complete mission objectives by defeating enemies or locating specific targets and locations. The controls work well enough, and navigating the game's corridors is enjoyable. Between levels, you have the opportunity to purchase upgrades, which gives incentive to continue on. Metalhead's primitive graphics and B-grade voice acting didn't light the world on fire in 1995, but as a retro game, this one is easy to recommend. Cosmic Carnage was also released in 1995 and is another game that was poorly received when new, but has found a second life as a cult classic of sorts. First, Cosmic Carnage is a substandard fighting game. The moves aren't terribly interesting, the controls are average at best, and the game moves very slow. What the game lacks in substance, it makes up for with style. The graphics feature plenty of scaling and rotation effects. When a match finishes, the camera will zoom in on the victor, for example. Some of the moves also feature scaling effects, making it seem a character's fist is coming towards the camera, mid-move. The actual design of the game is rather bizarre. It seems many of the characters are made with different parts that move independent of each other. This allows for armor to break and come off during battles, but also makes everything look a bit less smooth compared to a traditionally drawn game. Still, warts aside, this is a super cheesy game that definitely offers plenty of enjoyment. The different fighters are clearly inspired by sci-fi films from the 80s and adds to the game's charm. Cosmic Carnage is certainly not a great fighting game, but still offers plenty of amusement. Squadron is a space combat game, sharing a striking resemblance to Star Wars Arcade, which was also released on the Sega 32x. I'm not a huge fan of these types of games, so I can't really advise how this compares to the best titles in the genre. Graphically, Squadron is decent, featuring nice-looking, flat-shaded polygon models and basic star-filled backgrounds. Even better, the frame rate is surprisingly solid. The combat itself is mildly entertaining, and despite my lack of familiarity with the genre, I had no problems navigating through space, locating enemies, and blowing them up. The momentum when turning and rolling feels really nice. Many gamers consider this one of the very best games on the Sega 32x, and to be honest, it just might be. It was good enough to receive a sequel, which was released in Japan for the Sega Saturn. Squadron is fairly cheap, and even if you aren't a fan of space simulations, it's definitely worth a look.
Welcome to the fantasy zone. Get ready.
Space Harrier was the second superscalar arcade port to be released on the Sega 32x, again developed by Rutubo Games. Like many gamers, I've always been on the fence with Space Harrier. I don't much care for classic head-on shooters, and I find it awkward the thing I need to see most is obscured by my character. This leads to a lot of wandering around the screen trying to see everything, and occasionally flying right into oncoming fire unexpectedly while trying to see if something was coming directly at me. Others love Space Harrier, and it's hard to fault them. This port is terrific, with a silky smooth frame rate and some awesome sprite scaling effects. It is always clear when something is heading towards you, as it smoothly scales larger the closer it gets. The art direction is also amazing, with wonderful fantasy set pieces that are out of this world. To top it off, the addictive music is rendered nicely and is a real treat to listen to. Despite being terrible at Space Harrier, I still fire this one up now and again, put the difficulty on easy, and enjoy the great presentation. The double-headed dragon boss has always amused me, as it not only looks badass, but changes colors as you hit it. Others probably get more out of Space Harrier, but there you go.
You're doing great.
Last, but certainly not least, is Knuckles Chaotix. This is a spin-off from the main Sonic series, starring Knuckles and a few other cast-offs battling Eggman yet again. This time, you are bound to your opponent with a cool rubber band gimmick that I rather enjoy. You have some control over your opponent and must slingshot each other through dozens of massive stages. The biggest issue with Knuckles Chaotix is the bland level design, which is usually wide open, features very few enemies, and is not always clear where the end post is. On the flip side, Knuckles Chaotix is a gorgeous game, easily the best looking classic Sonic game. The sprite work is intricate and detailed, the use of color is outstanding, and everything moves as smooth as you would expect a Sonic game to be. Even better, the time of day changes, drenching each stage in alternate color palettes as you progress. It's a great touch that helps make up for the mediocre level design. Above all else, Knuckles Chaotix has an awesome soundtrack. Each piece is composed beautifully and executed perfectly on the sound hardware available. Knuckles Chaotix also has my favorite special stages. These really take advantage of the Sega 32x hardware and have our heroes racing down hexagon tubes collecting blue spheres. It's a nice showcase for the hardware and is surprisingly fun. So there you have it. While the Sega 32x doesn't have the best reputation, there were plenty of good and great titles released on the system, so be sure to leave a comment and let me know which Sega 32x games you enjoy.
Mission complete.